When I really want something, I usually pretend that I don't. It's not just that I pretend to be apathetic. I actually go as far as making declarative statements, offering rationales about why I don't want something I know that I want. I'm so good at lying about that. I've been doing it for as long as I can remember. At first, I can remember that growing up, if I showed how much I really wanted something, it would somehow reduce the likelihood of me getting it. So early in my life, I learned the winning strategy for getting what I wanted was to pretend I didn't really want it. I just looked around and I realized that the good boys and the good girls didn't really push to have the things they wanted. I convinced myself that there was something altruistic about that. I could tell in my child brain that people enjoyed rewarding girls and boys who were fine with or without the prize. I always went after the prize. But even when I got it, I could tell that no one seemed to feel good about giving it to me. They just gave up on giving me new reasons why I couldn't have it. I wanted to be like everyone else who was so oblivious about the prize and so shocked and happy when they got it. So I just kept pushing prizes and things I wanted further and further away from my conscious thinking. Until one day, it wasn't just that I ignored the prize. I feigned a sort of contempt for it. And in my later years, I realized that pretending I never wanted something in the first place made it less embarrassing if I never got it. I got so good at feigning prize apathy and prize contempt that eventually even the people closest to me had no idea what my real heart's desires or fears were. And one day, neither did I. I was talking to the Lord one day a few weeks ago, and He reminded me of this conversation I had just had with my dissertation chair. And in the conversation, He presented me with this incredible opportunity. And He mentioned it several times over the entire course of my doctoral study. Even if He never mentioned it though, what He was suggesting was something I had wanted to do for my entire life. I have no living memory of myself prior to wanting this thing. I have always wanted it. So why is it that when He finally offered me the opportunity to do it, I said no? I didn't just say no. I offered an elaborate and very convincing argument for why I didn't want what I knew I wanted. In fact, my argument was so convincing that even I didn't know I was lying. I had no idea until the Lord brought my own words back to me. And I cringed at the memory of every phrase. I had locked myself up so tightly in this argument that I couldn't foresee any way of undoing it. And I was standing there, blanketed with anxiety, and really attempting the mental gymnastics of damage control, when God asked me, "Why did you lie?" My name is Shauna Knox, and this is Further, where we explore the real Christ and the real you. The way to life is extremely narrow, and very few of us ever find it. But let's keep looking. We'll do it together. In last week's episode, we talked about the weight of measuring yourself as if you were your own rewarder. And this week, I want to talk about one of the coping mechanisms that you could find yourself trapped in if you kept doing that. This week, we're going to talk about denial. Denial. That condition of refusing to acknowledge the reality of a thing. When you deny, you see the truth, but you reject its authenticity. And if you get good enough at it, at some point, you won't even know what's true anymore. But why do we deny? Denial is actually a coping mechanism. It's a defense from a distressing situation or an emotional conflict or some threatening information or an influx of anxiety. And when I think about my own denial, learning at a very young age to pretend I didn't want the things I really wanted, I'm reminded of a story in 2 Kings, the story of Elisha and the Shunamite woman. In 2 Kings chapter 4, Jeremiah writes this story of a wealthy woman who always provides food for the prophet Elisha when he comes into town. In fact, she's so hospitable that she adds a room onto her home just so that when he comes into town, he'll have a place to stay. Elisha is very grateful to this woman for her kindness. So he asks his servant how he can bless her. And his servant tells him that she's childless and her husband is up in age. So Elisha decides to call her into his room, and in her presence, he petitions the Lord for her to have a child. The Bible says that the woman responds to his prayer saying, "No, O man of God, do not lie to me." It was clear that she desperately wanted the child, quietly. But when the prophet touched that nerve, said that desire out loud, that she could have a child, a son, the only thing she said was no. Denial can make you lie about the things you want the most. It convinces you that the lie, that you don't want it, somehow protects you from the loss you've already suffered prematurely. She wanted a son, but she couldn't bear to hope for one, so she just denied the desire. She denied what she wanted because she wanted it too much. What are you denying? This isn't the end of the Shunamite woman's story. In fact, she does have the child, but her life takes a horrific turn when one day, after working in the field with his father, Her son comes home with a headache, sits on her lap, and dies without warning. That is why we deny. Because hoping for things we desire so deeply that the draw for them is in our bones is too painful to face when we cannot get what we want. Being in denial might not be perfect, but we know how to do that. What we don't know is how to ride life's roller coaster, weathering all those ups and downs without lying about the true desires of our hearts. The Shunamite woman's son lived again because in the agony of that loss, she refused to let him go. If she pretended she was okay with losing him, if she denied her son the care of fighting for his life, he would not have lived again. Don't your desires deserve the care of you fighting for them? Matthew chapter 7, verses 7 and 8 say, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened." So if you ask, you receive. And if you deny, you lose what you would have gotten if you asked, or you knocked, or you went seeking. When the Lord started showing me my areas of denial, I couldn't even tell I was lying anymore. He asked me why I was lying, and the answer was to cope, to get from one day to the next, to block myself from knowing I needed to lie to be happy. Stop lying to yourself. It's not helping you at all. The Lord delights in fulfilling the desires of our hearts, and denial is the act of hardening our hearts against desire. We can't be fulfilled while being in denial. There's a choice to be made. What are you too afraid to admit that you want? Not only does it please the Lord to grant us our desires, but some of our deepest desires come from Him in the first place. So burying them, denying them, is suffocating your own divinity, that sacred place in you in which you were designed to collaborate with heaven most masterfully. Let's make a decision together right now to tell the truth, to own our desires, and to entrust them to the Lord. According to the famed founder of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, there are 3 types of denial: simple denial, minimization, and projection. With simple denial, we pretend that something unpleasant isn't true. With minimization, we admit that something unpleasant is true, but we pretend it isn't as serious as it is to us. And with projection, we admit that something unpleasant is both true and serious, but we misplace the blame for the unpleasant thing. So in the case of the Shunamite woman, if she was in simple denial, she would have lied about wanting a child. If she was minimizing, she would have admitted she wanted a child, but pretended she didn't really care whether or not she had one. And if she was projecting, when her son died, she would have determined that the reason why he died is because bad things always happened to her, and she deserved to lose him as punishment for hoping for something good. So there are a number of ways in which we lie to ourselves. But I'm asking you not to lie at all. Let's go back to the Lord. Let's tell him the truth about what's in our hearts, the truth we've been too afraid to say. Let's ask him to show us the things we've been lying about for so long that even we can't see them. Let's put our hope in the one who promises that if we delight ourselves in him, commit our way to him, trust in him, and seek him first, he will grant our heart's desires and fulfill his plan in our lives. Until next time, grace and peace.